In today's seminar, we will be concentrating on unifying data sources into one consolidated, unified data model. And the specific scenario that we're going to focus on today is around sales. What we're going to do is merge an old sales system with the current one. And first and foremost, we have them in two separate databases. And we're going to use ZAP to essentially bring them together into a unified data model. Now, before we go into ZAP Data Hub, what we're going to do first is go on to the End BI tool to see what reporting looks like with just the current ERP system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Power BI section. What you can see here is Data Hub, but I'm going to go into Power BI down here. And you can see instantly what we've got is some sales information around cost and margin over the 2 years. Same with invoices and quantity invoiced over 2 years, and some commission and contribution margin information too. The scenario that we're going to go through today is we've got some old data that brings in from previous months. And what we're going to do is use that Data Hub to unify that into the model. Now, the model that is currently on Power BI is the Enterprise Data Model. That's exactly what I've called it within ZAP Data Hub. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into the data source section, and now you can see that I'm currently connected to a ERP system called Enterprise Management. That's part of the Sage suite. I'm going to go onto the right hand side and add another data source. I've got a range of different sources that I connect to, irrespective of source, file type, or location. I can connect to it using ZAP Data Hub. But in this case, just to keep a simple scenario in play, I'm going to click onto SQL Server. I'm going to put into my credentials, just quickly typing in my credentials there. And then from here, I've got my username and password, which is my Windows login, and I simply select the database that I want to connect to. Now you can see here, I've made it very simple to understand. I've called it Old System Database. I'm going to select that and then test the connection to make sure that we can connect. All good signs there. Then we're going to click on to Next. And on the process bar, you may have noticed that we've gone through every section of me pulling in a new data source. So this is the last section here where I decide what tables from the data source I want to select. In this case, I want to select the sales lines, which hold all the invoices of the old system. And I'm going to press Add Pipelines. Now this is where ZAP technology is kicked into play. What essentially is going on the right hand side is understanding whether there's a relationship with what I've just selected from my old system with the new system. And I can open this particular section there, and you can see just one element of many different things that are going on in terms of integrating and relating my old system with my new current system that I'm using. So now that's gone through that process, it's saved that table pipeline within the model. All I need to do now is simply hit finish, and it will take me back to the administration mode of my data model. So we can see we've got 3 different sources now, including the source that I've just added. Let me close this down and let's see what that looks like at the table pipeline level. Now I've already searched for sales. So we know that we pulled in from the data source, the old system database, the sales line. And I want to merge that with my sales invoice lines. So basically what I'm doing, going back to the scenario that I've showed, is merging my Sage X3 Enterprise Management, which is the source that you initially saw, with my old ERP system. So let's do the unification piece. So I'm going to click onto the essentially Enterprise Management Sales Invoice Lines table. And what I'm going to tell Data Hub to do now is unify both the Sage X3 Enterprise Management and also my old ERP. And you can see here I'm typing in the step to follow, union with old ERP. I'm going to select the table that it was called on the old ERP table. And now I simply let Zap Data Hub do all the unification. And there we are. What I'm going to do now is essentially just review these items. So now it's going to merge my sales invoice lines from one system and unify that with my old system. Same with customer, company. Okay, that's great. And you can see the others that it's kind of linked to. Let's click onto relationships. Now this tells me all the different types of relationships that exist within all the tables. No errors there, which is great. So I'm going to save and close this. So I'm going to save it there and close this table. Now I've unified that table with the old system and the new. So essentially I don't need this to be part of my model, but we'll leave it there for now. I'm going to now process the model again. And then from this processing the model, all I will need to do next is then connect the model into Power BI. So we'll let this run through and see exactly what's happening. You can see here that it's going to run through and process all the warehouse. It's going to then process the cube. And then all the report calculations, not just within the model, but specifically around the sales invoice lines. Now, while that's processing, what we can do is show you how you can look at what we've pulled in from the old system. Let's click onto the sales lines. So this is now pulling from the old system. So what else has Zap Data Hub done except for just unifying those tables together? What it's also done is if I click onto the relationships piece, it's also established a relationship with the sales line, which is, I'll label this a little bit better, old system. It's unified the old system sales lines with the new system tables. So now my current ERP business partner table has a relationship with this sales line, and so on and so forth. You can then decide that whether a relationship should exist or not. So I can remove created date. I don't need that relationship, and keep invoice date, and so much more. And that's how simple it is, just to unify or even just pull in another data source from another system. So what I'm going to do here is going to go back into columns. And now I could administer this page by deciding, okay, well, Zap Data Hub has decided what this icon is, i.e. a measure, because it's an amount. Maybe I want to have some dimensions, some attributes about my business on this particular table so it's available for me within the model. Now I don't need company because, as you saw, the relationship already exists with my current ERP companies. But what I do want is, say, be able to go to direction, and you can see the two values that are within that column, and say that I want this as an attribute within my model. That's how simple it is. Very easy to administer and all point and click. Now, showing you this, let me save and close this, and let's go back to what we initially were trying to achieve. Now, that's processed through, which is great. So let's see what that looks like on Power BI. Now, going back to those reports around cost, margin, sales, invoiced, contribution, commission, I'm just going to hit the refresh button because, as you can see, there's a live connection on the bottom right hand corner with my model. And if I go to queries and edit queries, you can see that it's connected to my enterprise data model. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to simply refresh, and what you've got here now is information of my current system and information coming from my old system. all unified together into one unified data model using ZAP Data Hub. And just to be very clear, you've not seen me do any hacking, any scripting, any T-SQL. This is all point and click based. And you can do some really advanced data warehousing, which is commonly a manual process, and have that as an automated process using ZAP Data Hub. That is my presentation for today, and thank you so much for following me through this journey of merging a data model that we have already built with a current system and adding an additional data source to merge into a unified data model.